better, baby, better treat me better. Better than those other guys who change up like the weather. Yeah. Yes! Incroyable livre. Not the shitty French. Hey, how's it going? How's life? My name is Sophia. Welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I am going to be doing the best books I've read in 2021. I have an interesting selection of books to talk to you guys about today. So without further ado, let's get into the best books I read last year. The first book I have to talk about is going to be a graphic novel, and it's going to be a surprise to no one. And that is going to be Monstrous Volume 5 by Majori Liu and Sana Takeda. In this graphic novel, we are following our main character, Micah Halfwolf, who is half human, half arcanic, and within this world, arcanics are sold as slaves, and they have their organs harvested for their magical properties. The beginning of this graphic novel starts off with a war brewing between the arcanics and the Federation being the humans within this world. I love everything about this graphic novel. If you've been on my channel since last year, you will know that I may or may not have had an unhealthy obsession with this graphic novel. I love the characters. Kippa is this precious little baby fox that is just trying to do her best in the world, and Micah is this dark and broody character that has a soft spot for no one but Kippa, and I just love their dynamic. The art style is probably one of, if not the best part of this graphic novel. It is so beautiful and gorgeous, and it's like very dark and atmospheric. I love the world. This is a matriarchal steampunk Japanese inspired fantasy. So like if any of those sound interesting to you, please pick it up. I have been made aware by my friends Taylor from Made Between the Pages and Rachel from Let Me in the Library that there are some critiques to be had, but like in my mind those criticisms don't exist, and this graphic novel is just absolutely perfection. I freaking love this so much. Honestly, over the past couple of years, I have been trying to get into other graphic novels, and out of all of the graphic novels I've read, this is the one that sticks with me. The next book I have to talk about is actually a surprise for me, and that is going to be Legendborn by Tracy Dion. I actually did a reading vlog for this. This was part of my BookTube Friends Choose My TBR video that I will leave linked up above or down below. But my best friend Rue actually chose Legendborn for me to read, and I was pleasantly surprised picking up this book. In this story, you are following our main character, Bree Matthews, whose mother has died in a car crash. Bree gets accepted into her mother's old college, and she starts learning about like this mysterious underworld magic situation. And then Bree also decides to investigate her mother's death because she feels that there might be more to the situation than meets the eyes. I loved this book. This book was so much fun for me. I loved Bree as a main character, and I related to her so much. The way Tracy Dion handled discussions of race was impeccably done in my opinion, and I could relate to Bree's struggles. Like, there's a scene in here where Brie talks about people just trying to stroke her hair and pet it, and like, that has actually happened to me. I was at work, side tangent, but I was at work one day and this random lady came in and started stroking my box braids. Did not know this lady from a can of paint, did not know where she came from. And so little things like that I really related to. I also really liked the magic in this world. I thought it was very intriguing and fascinating, and I wanted to learn more about it. And I also liked her relationship with her father, which, in my personal opinion, I wish we could have gotten a little bit more of that than we got in this book. And like, her dynamic and her relationship with her father reminded me of my dad and our relationship. Like, I feel like this book was just especially written specifically for me, and I love everything about it. I'm gonna be completely honest, you might pick this book up and you might completely hate it, but in my mind, for me, it was perfection. So the next book I have to talk about is going to be Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. In this book, we are following humanity as they try to colonize other planets across different galaxies. One of the scientists has a project to infect monkeys with this virus to speed up their evolution, so that when humanity decides to go to that planet, the world will already be built. But something happens, and instead of the monkeys being infected with the virus, it is spiders. And so when humanity tries to go to that planet, all they see are these giant talking spiders. This book is another situation where it was a pleasant surprise. If you know anything about my channel, specifically from my channel name, you know that fantasy is my bread and butter. It is my main genre, and I kind of wanted to branch out into sci-fi. And so I had heard good things about this book, but honestly, I was too scared to pick it up. I'm terrified of spiders, I'm terrified of bugs, I'm terrified of anything creepy crawly, and so I was tentatively interested in reading this book. And this was actually my friend Tammy's pick for that reading vlog, and so I had no choice but to pick it up. And this book was so much fun. I love the way Adrian Tchaikovsky explored evolutionary theories. Granted, did some of the stuff go over my head? Yes, it did. Did I have to reread certain passages several times? Yes, I did. But other than that, like, this was so much fun, and the characters were just so incredibly well developed and amazing. The Spider Society was a matriarchal society, and it was perfection. I just loved this book so freaking much. It was surprising to me because I expected to go into this book hating the spiders and just being on the sides of humanity. But in reality, the humans were trash. And so I was rooting for the spiders, which had me shooketh. I don't know if I would recommend this to a sci-fi newbie, simply because it is incredibly complex. Unless you don't mind rereading certain passages over and over again before it clicks, then maybe start off with something more easy to read. Incredible, wonderful, amazing story. Would highly recommend. One of the best books I ever read. This is probably one of the best sci-fis I've ever read, period, point blank. Granted, I haven't read a lot of sci-fi, but do I need to read any more sci-fi when I have read this perfection? I don't know. The next book on my list is actually going to be a middle grade. who even am I? And for me, that is going to be Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. In this book, we are following our main character, Amari, whose brother has gone missing. One day, she gets this secret package from her brother, introducing her to this magical world that lives alongside the real world. Amari then gets whisked away to become part of this magical society known as the Bureau, and our story goes from there. The whimsy was just so precious to me, and I loved it so much. Like, every time I read middle grade, I'm just like, oh my goodness, I need more of this in my life. Amari is so precious. I loved her relationship with her family. Granted, I wish we had gotten more of the family dynamic, and also the friendships were just so cute to me, and I loved the friendships in this book. It made my cold dead heart so freaking happy. The magic, the world was just so whimsical and so much fun. I loved every single second of it. And the ending broke my heart. It made me feel emotions that I was not prepared to feel. Incredible story. I am hyped, I am excited, I am intrigued to read the next book in this series. The next book I have to talk about is going to be more than one book, and that is simply because I feel like this should count as one, but that is going to be the Dead Djinn Universe by P. Djèlí Clark. I read A Dead Djinn in Cairo, The Angel of An el Khalili, and The Haunting of Tramcar 015 last year, and I really loved those stories. Something about P. Djèlí Clark's writing style is just so immersive and atmospheric, and I just ate it up. I also really loved the characters. I thought that the characters were fun, and I also thought that the characters were quite humorous at times, which was very entertaining for me to read. Fatma and Siti are my babies, and I just want them to have nothing but happiness in this world. If you're like a newbie into fantasy, I would highly recommend picking up these books, simply because, first of all, they're novellas and short stories, so they're super quick and easy to get through. But also, I find that the way P. Djèlí Clark explains the magic and the world and the history is very easy and very accessible to someone who may have not read fantasy. This is a steampunk fantasy that takes place in, I believe, 1820s Cairo, which is like a very unique setting that I've personally never read about. And I love the way that P. Djèlí Clark writes about magical creatures within this world. Like, the creatures are recognizable throughout different lore, but he adds his own unique twist to it, which was fun. It's also a mystery. So like, if you are into mystery, if you are into fantasy, highly recommend this book. So much fun. I should have read A Master of Djinn last year. I actually started it, but then life happens, so I couldn't finish it. So hopefully I can finish it this year. The next book that I have to talk about, I actually have a full series review up on my channel for this book. I highly recommend checking out that video, simply because, in my humble opinion, I think it is one of the best videos that I have done. I'm very proud of that video. But anywho, the next book I have to talk about is going to be The Dragon of Jin Sayang by K.S. Veloso. In the first book, we are following Talyan, which is this queen of this small island nation. On the day of her coronation, her husband runs away. 5 years later, she gets a note from him saying that he wants to meet up within this empire. Talion decides to go meet up with him, and she starts to uncover some secrets about the empire and about her kingdom that she didn't know, and our story goes from there. What can I say about this book except for the fact that Talion is perfection? What can I say? What can I say besides that? But yes, I loved and adored Talion as a character, especially in the first book. In the first book, I found Talion to be incredibly intellectual and resourceful, and it was fun reading from her perspective. Granted, in the second and third book, she did lose some of her brain cells, but I still loved her nonetheless. And also Kyne is just a thief with a moral compass, and I just love those types of characters. He is just a precious baby that's trying to do his best in this shitty world, and I love and adore him for it. I also really enjoyed the world. This is a morally gray society, and it was so much fun to read about. I will say that the fantasy elements are fairly light, so if you are someone who is intimidated by fantasy, intimidated by grand epic magic systems, I feel like this would be a fairly easy book to get into. And it's also inspired by pre-colonial Philippines. Love this. Highly enjoyed my time reading this. Would recommend. Amazing, wonderful, show-stopping, incroyable.
Talented, brilliant, incredible, amazing, show-stopping, spectacular.
Alrighty, so next up on my list is going to be A Wish in the Dark by Christina Soontorn-Vant. In this story, you are following our main character Pong, who was born and raised in Nam Wan prison, and he one day manages to escape. The second perspective you are following is a character named Nuk, whose father runs the prison. And because Pong was able to escape, it has brought disgrace onto Nuk's family. So she goes on a mission to find Pong and bring him back to prison so she can restore her family's honor. This is also a Les Miserables retelling. I've never seen Les Miserables, so I don't know how accurate or how good the retelling aspect of this story is. But what I can say is on its own, I really enjoyed this book. I loved Pong as a character, and I also loved his relationship dynamic with his best friend, but also the monk that he meets. That relationship was just so sweet and so freaking precious to me, and I loved it so much. The world is inspired by Taiwanese culture, which was a fun part of the story. The character dynamics were just mwah, chef's kiss. I loved them. And I also really loved how the author explored themes of privilege through Nok's perspective. Nok, in the beginning of the story, is an entitled brat. But as the story goes on, she starts to learn certain things about society. And it was very interesting to see how her character was able to develop from that spoiled brat into someone with a bit more humanity. In terms of like the magic, it was fun. I liked it. It was very whimsical, and it just took me back to my childhood, and I loved this so freaking much. Me and my friends did do a live show for our Chaos Rising book club back when it was still active. And so like if you're interested in knowing more of our spoilery thoughts, I will leave that linked up above or down below for you guys to check out. But yeah, loved it so much. Would highly recommend picking it up. This next book that I have to talk about is just the best book in the entire universe, in my humble opinion. And that is going to be The Stone Sky by N.K. Jemisin. It was so good. This was so freaking good. I read the 5th season and the Obelisk Gate last year, and I thought they were amazing. I thought they were incredible. The year before last year, in 2020. And they were so good. The 5th season actually made it on my best books last year. I'm just saying. My friend Chloe from Thistle and Verse decided to do a slow read along for this entire trilogy, and I was a co-host, which is how I was able to read The Stone Sky. And when I tell you, this book was freaking amazing. Freaking amazing. The way that N.K. Jemisin expands the lore and the history of this world was just incredibly done. The twists and turns that this book took, I did not see coming at all. Even if I was good at predicting stories, which I'm not, I don't think I would have been able to see any of the twists or turns coming in this book. Essun, I love Essun. She's like a very complex, morally gray character. And Alabaster. I can't talk about it. This entire trilogy is very heavy on themes of race, oppression, and environmentalism, but I feel like this book in particular is also deals heavy with themes of generational trauma and how even though a person might not mean to, they can pass on their trauma to their children. And I thought that that was so well explored, and I loved it so freaking much. Shafa is complete trash. We hate him here. Fuck Shafa. Nasun, I didn't like her character either, but like I felt so conflicted with Nasun's characters because I'm just like, this child sucks, but also this is a freaking child. So I don't know how to feel. Honestly, I was scared. I was scared to pick up this entire trilogy because at the time it was so hyped and everybody who picked it up was raving about it. But then I picked it up, and honestly I can say this is one of the few books that's actually worth the hype. Like, it's just an incredible story and you need to read it if you haven't already. I've noticed that I have quite a few middle grades and YA in this list. I feel like I don't know who I am anymore. The next book that made it onto my best books of 2021 is going to be Iron Widow by Shiran J. Zhao. I'm sorry for the mispronunciation. I did look up how to say this author's name, but I feel like tonally I don't know how to do the tones. We are following our main character Wu Zetian, who decides to join the army within this world to get revenge because of her sister's death. In this world, humanity is being attacked by alien species. Basically, the military is like the most important aspect of this world because it defends humanity against the invading alien army. It's interesting because the main choice of weapon are these chrysalises, which is manned by one female pilot and one male pilot. And they are connected together through a psychic link, which is how they're able to power the chrysalises. Our main character goes into the army, gets revenge. A certain situation happens, and instead she gets paired up with this other character who is a criminal and who has killed every single female pilot that he's ever been with. And our story goes from there. I feel like out of all of the YA fantasies that I have read, This is the most unique out of all of them. The way that the author was able to build this world, this magic system. I've never read anything in the genre like this before. I also really appreciated how the author dealt with Zetien's character development. It was very intricate, I must say, and all of the characters in this book are morally gray, which is refreshing to read, because oftentimes when I read YA, the characters tend to be a bit one-dimensional when it comes to morality and the way that YA authors tend to deal with it. It tends to be, these are the bad guys and they're just 100% bad, and then these are the good guys and they're supposed to be 100% good, which isn't fun to read about at all. I like complex, morally gray characters. I like questioning my own morality through these characters. I feel like that's too problematic to put in. And I feel like Shiran J. Zhao does an excellent job of making these characters complex and borderline evil, but still making them likable enough to where you want to root for them. And there's like a polyamorous relationship that is just so freaking sweet. I loved the romantic dynamic. It's so interesting the way the author handled it, because if you read YA on a regular basis, there's always a freaking love triangle, and authors tend to follow a particular pattern when it comes to romance and love triangles. And Shiran J. Zhao said, you know what? Fuck that shit. I'm gonna, instead of making the girl choose, I'm gonna make it so sis can have both. And I love that. It was so much fun to read. I highly recommend picking this up. This is like one of the books that I pick up and I'm just like, should I get back into YA? Because this is so much fun, so unique, so fresh, so different. And I highly enjoyed my time reading this book. The next book I have to talk about is probably one of, if not the best. Like top 3 off the top of my head would be Children of Time, The Stone Sky, and Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee. When I tell you that Fonda Lee took my heart, ripped it out of her chest, squeezed the life out of it, tore it to pieces, stomped on it, and set it on fire. And I enjoyed every single minute of it because I'm a masochist. In this trilogy, you are following the Call family, which is a crime lord family living on the island of Kekon, which is this East Asian inspired island. Within this world, there is this thing called bioenergetic jade, which gives the users these supernatural abilities such as strength, speed, deflection. And the people within this world have to be trained in order to be able to harness the power of jade. The No Peak clan has a rivalry, a beef with this other clan known as the Mountain Clan, and this entire trilogy is just following this very intricate gang war, if you will. I loved everything about this series. Like, the world building is absolutely incredible. The political machinations are top tier. The character development was amazing. And Hilo is my baby's daddy. I love him so much. Oh my god. I cannot tell you the amount of times I cried while reading this book. Like, Fonda Lee takes it there, and I enjoyed every single second of it. I will say the story does have a lot of time skips, so I was feeling very emotional seeing all my babies grow up. You know what I'm saying? And the way The way the world building and the politics specifically was handled was incredible. The first book in this trilogy, Jade City, starts off very contained, very small, and as the story progresses, the politics get more intricate, the world gets expanded to a whole new level, and it was just so much fun to read about. If you are in the mood to cry, I would suggest picking up this series because Fonda Lee is the type of person that isn't afraid to kill off her main characters, and she isn't afraid to make her readers suffer, which is probably why I enjoyed this book so much. And I can't believe it's over. It just makes me want to cry just thinking about the fact that we'll never see these characters again. Alrighty, so that was it for my best books of 2020. Feel free to comment down below. Let me know some of your best books of 2021. Shit, fuck. So those were my best books of 2021. Feel free to comment down below. Let me know some of the best books you guys read last year. If you've reached the end of the video, feel free to comment a heart emoji. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope to see you guys soon with another video, and until then, I will see you soon. Bye.